The forest north of Blackthorn was silent in the way forests only go silent when something dangerous is near. Birds did not sing. Wind did not stir the branches. King Ronan Ashgard moved through the trees with the quiet certainty of a man who had done this many times before, his senior warriors trailing several steps behind, giving him the space he always demanded when he hunted. Ronan had ruled Blackthorn for 6 years, since the night his father died and left him a kingdom built on fear. In that time, he had never once failed to find a rogue wolf who crossed his borders. He had never once shown mercy. The law was simple and absolute. Any wolf without a pack mark, found inside Blackthorn territory, was to be hunted down. No trial, no exceptions. Ronan had learned early that mercy looked weak to wolves who respected only strength, and so he had buried whatever softness he once had, deep enough that even he sometimes forgot it existed. The scent had come to him 2 days ago, carried on the wind from the northern ridge. It was faint, careful, the scent of someone who knew how to stay hidden. Most rogues who wandered into his land were starving, desperate, easy to find within hours. This one was different. This one had survived 2 days against his best trackers, which told him more than any words could. Whoever this rogue was, they were not careless, they were not foolish, and that made them dangerous. He found her at dusk, standing in a clearing beside a stream, as if she had been waiting for him. She was thin, her clothes worn from travel, her dark hair tangled with leaves and dirt, but her eyes, when they met his, held no fear. She did not run, she did not beg, she simply stood there, watching him the way a person watches a storm they know they cannot outrun, but refuse to flinch from anyway. "You've been tracking me for 2 days," she said. Her voice was steady, though exhaustion clung to every word. "I assume you're the king." "I am," Ronan said, "and you are a rogue on my land, which means you already know how this ends." "I know how you think it ends," she replied. Something in the way she said it made him pause. Rogues who crossed his territory usually pleaded for their lives, or attacked out of desperation. She simply waited, as though she had already decided that whatever happened next, she would meet it standing. "What's your name?" he asked, surprising himself with the question. He never asked names. Names made things complicated. "Ren," she said. "And before you ask why I have no pack, I'll tell you now, so you don't waste more of your time hunting for a story that isn't there. My pack is dead. They were killed years ago, by a king who called them traitors before anyone bothered to ask why." Ronan went still. He knew that story. He had grown up hearing pieces of it in whispers behind closed doors, in the way his father's advisors would go quiet whenever a certain year was mentioned. A pack near the eastern border, accused of conspiring against the crown, wiped out in a single night on his father's orders. Ronan had been young then, barely old enough to understand what power meant, and by the time he was old enough to ask questions, everyone who might have answered them had learned to stay silent. "That pack," he said slowly, "was destroyed under my father's rule." "I know," Ren said. "I was 11 years old when it happened. I watched it from the tree line, because my mother pushed me into the woods and told me to run and not look back. I've been running ever since." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The warriors behind Ronan shifted uneasily, waiting for an order, waiting for him to do what he always did. But Ronan found that his voice would not come. He was supposed to end this. That was the law he had built his entire reign upon, the law that had made him feared, that had kept rival packs from testing his borders for 6 long years. He was supposed to raise his hand and give the command, and it would be finished within seconds. Instead, he found himself asking, "Why did you come here? Of all the lands you could have crossed, why come into Blackthorn?" Ren's jaw tightened. "Because I heard the king who destroyed my pack was dead, and I wanted to see what kind of man his son had become. I wanted to know if you were any different, or if you were just as willing to kill someone for existing." It was a dangerous thing to say to the king, who could end her life with a single word. But Ronan did not raise his hand. He did not give the order. He simply looked at her, this woman who had survived a massacre as a child, and had somehow found the courage to walk straight into the territory of the son of the man who caused it, and something inside him refused to move. "Bring her," he finally said to his warriors. "She comes to the fortress, unharmed." His warriors exchanged uncertain glances, but obeyed. because that was what 6 years of absolute rule had trained them to do. The journey back to Blackthorn Fortress took the better part of a day. Wren said little, and Ronan found himself watching her more than he meant to, trying to understand why he had not simply ended things in the clearing the way the law demanded, the way he had ended things 100 times before. He told himself it was because her story deserved to be heard by the court, that dragging her before his advisors and passing judgment there would send a stronger message than a quiet death in the woods. He told himself this, even though some quieter part of him knew it was not the whole truth. The court hall of Blackthorn was vast and cold, built from gray stone that had seen judgment after judgment pass beneath its high ceilings. When Ronan entered with Wren beside him, guarded but unchained, whispers rippled through the gathered lords and advisors like wind through dry grass. It was unusual for the king to bring a rogue before the court at all. Most sentences were carried out quietly, efficiently, far from prying eyes. But Ronan wanted this one seen. He wanted no one to doubt that the law still held, even for a woman whose story might otherwise stir sympathy he could not afford to allow. He stood before his throne, looking down at Wren, who stood tall despite the exhaustion still etched into her face, despite the dozens of eyes fixed upon her. This woman was found without a packmark, inside Blackthorn territory, Ronan announced, his voice carrying easily across the hall. By the law of this kingdom, the sentence is death. A murmur rose and fell among the lords. Wren did not flinch. She looked at him steadily, as though she had already accepted this outcome long before she ever crossed his border, as though she had decided that if this was how her story ended, she would not give him the satisfaction of watching her break. Ronan felt his wolf stir beneath his skin, restless in a way it had never been before during a sentencing. He had performed this ritual dozens of times without hesitation, without so much as a flicker of resistance from the beast that lived inside him. But now, as he prepared to shift and carry out the judgment himself, as tradition demanded of a king, his wolf pushed back against him with a force he had never felt before. He shifted anyway, his body folding and reshaping into the massive silver wolf that had made his father's enemies tremble, that had made his own enemies tremble in turn. The court watched in silence, waiting for the king's wolf to do what it always did. Instead, the wolf turned its great head toward Wren, took one slow step forward, and knelt. Not a crouch, not a pause before an attack. A full, deliberate kneeling, the wolf's head lowering until it nearly touched the stone floor, its massive form folding down before the very woman it had been summoned to execute. The hall fell utterly silent. No one moved, no one breathed. Even Ronan, trapped inside the mind of his own wolf, felt a jolt of pure disbelief ripple through him, because he understood, in that instant, exactly what everyone else in the room understood. A wolf did not kneel out of weakness, or confusion, or accident. In all the old laws, in all the oldest stories passed down through generations of Blackthorn's ruling line, there was only one reason a wolf ever knelt before another person. It was the rarest, most sacred recognition a wolf could give. It meant that this person, this exact person standing before him, was his fated mate. Wren stared down at the enormous silver wolf kneeling at her feet, her expression caught somewhere between shock and disbelief. She had come to Blackthorn expecting judgment, expecting perhaps a quick death or, if she was fortunate, a chance to simply disappear back into the wilderness. She had never, in any version of this moment she had imagined, expected this. Whispers exploded across the hall, lords turning to one another in astonishment, advisors exchanging looks of alarm. Ronan shifted back into his human form, kneeling now himself on the cold stone floor, breathing hard, his composure cracked wide open in front of every noble whose respect he had spent 6 years earning. "This changes nothing," he said, forcing the words out even as his voice betrayed him with its unsteadiness. "The law still." "The law," interrupted Lord Callum, one of his oldest advisors, "cannot override what your wolf has just shown this entire court, Your Majesty. You cannot execute your own fated mate. It has never been done. It would break something in you that cannot be repaired." Ronan rose slowly to his feet, his eyes finding Wren's across the space between them. She looked as unsettled as he felt, her arms wrapped around herself now, as if trying to hold herself together against a truth she clearly had not wanted either. I want nothing to do with this, Ren said quietly, though her voice carried in the silent hall. Fated or not, you are the son of the man who destroyed my family. That does not disappear because your wolf decided to kneel. I know, Ronan said, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, he spoke without the armor of authority in his voice. I'm not asking you to forgive what happened to your pack. I couldn't have stopped it. I was a child. But I am asking you to let me try to be better than the man who caused it. Starting now. Starting with you. The hall waited, breathless, for his next words, because everyone present understood that whatever the king said next would either steady his throne or shatter it. Ronan turned to face his court fully, his voice growing stronger with every word. I am ending the rogue laws, effective this hour. No wolf will be hunted or executed simply for surviving without a pack. If there are questions to be asked, they will be asked. If there is justice to be found for what happened to Ren's people, I will find it, even if it means uncovering things my father wanted buried forever. Gasps rippled through the hall, but Ronan did not waver. He walked down the steps of his throne until he stood directly before Ren, close enough now that she had to tilt her head slightly to meet his eyes. I'm not asking you to trust me tonight, he said. I'm only asking for the chance to earn it. Under my protection, you will never be hunted again. That much, I can promise you, and I intend to keep it. Ren studied him for a long moment, the entire court holding its breath around them, waiting to see whether the girl who had run from the flames of her burning pack would accept even the smallest offer of safety from the son of the man who lit them. One chance, she finally said. That's all you get. It was not forgiveness. It was not even trust. Not yet. But it was a beginning, and as the murmurs of the court rose once more around them, uncertain, but no longer hostile, Ronan understood that for the first time since taking the throne, he had chosen something other than fear to build his kingdom upon. And somewhere beneath his ribs, his wolf, still and calm now that it had finally been heard, settled into a quiet certainty that this choice, whatever it cost him, was the only one he would ever make again.